Well, this is a rather big thing on the outside, but to drive it doesn't really feel any different to something like a Freelander. High up driving position, a bonnet that looks like I might be in a Freelander, but obviously I'm not. But much more space. That's on the inside and on the outside. It's a rather imposing looking creature indeed. What you are looking at here is a Toyota Land Cruiser Invincible A, and that's a big pot of paint, which, like the hills down there, is mostly irrelevant to this particular car review. Big, isn't it? Any car that's as tall as me or taller, I would consider to be big. You'd think I was kneeling down, but I'm not. I'm stood up, so it's over 6 foot tall. And with that, it's going to have a dirty roof because nobody can reach it. Well, I wouldn't say quite nobody, but obviously that is going to be very awkward to clean indeed. Styled by a team of Japanese car enthusiasts. Let's not say enthusiasts. Styled by a team of Japanese car designers, this car looks almost like an oversized Hyundai from a distance. That kind of distance. I think it's that grille that does it. It doesn't have a great deal of actual style going on. I mean, it's got wheel arches that jut out. It's got doors. It's got big mirrors. It's got glass. It's got roof rails. It's got rear windows that pop out. It's got rather voluptuous rear lamps. I have a good feel of those. Yeah. Could do the clean. Most of it is rather generic, but it's from the back, really, where it just looks a bit more like a van. The older version had the wheel on the back there, which give it a bit of style. Maybe purposeless, but style all the same. But at least it has the rear opening door like that. What a huge thing that is. Stay open, stay open. That's not really open, is it? This car, of course, is finished in gangster black with its grey wheels and the 6 wheel studs that would suggest that it has a towing weight of 3.5 ton steps. They look kind of cool. They also look kind of purposeful, but the only thing is you don't really need them because it's not actually that tall to get in. I mean, if I actually use the side step, I'm going to be jumping up too high, whereas I can actually just slide straight across like that. But then I'm a tallish man and I can just do that. What about for a small person? What about for someone who's about 5 foot? Often these really big cars do appeal to ladies with small children and they need all the space in the back for all of the peripheries. And it does look like there's an awful lot of legroom in the back. Let's try it. Yeah, this is fantastic. This is the kind of car you could travel in luxury with because there's loads of headroom, there's loads of legroom, and to top it all important ashtray, depending on who you are. This is quite a busy road and there are a lot of cars going by, and they might be wondering why this man is climbing into the back of a car on a public road. Well, the assumption may not be, well, he's doing some sort of test drive review. No, he might be up to something more interesting. Anyway, back to what's relevant. The seats are actually made of leather, real leather as well. It's quite soft, quite nice. Fit and finish is really nice, and we have bits like this kind of piano black wood there, which isn't actual wood. Bits like the pretend leather, but it all just fits together really nicely, and there's a carpet in there. And the door shut sound isn't one where it's trying to sound like a Golf. And that's a good thing, because all cars sound the same today, don't they? They all have that same kind of door shut sound, which I don't even like particularly. But anyway, that's going off the point ever so slightly, so let's stop. A little look around the interior of this car and you can see it is big. Look at the size of that cubby hole. Look at the size of the hole in there. You could fit somebody's head in that box. But that's the first bit of low rent build quality I've found so far that doesn't seem to fit that well. Whereas the rest of it, of course, we have the dashboard made of the kind of stuff you would expect it to be made of, and not the cheapest materials they could possibly find. One thing that shows this car off to be something of a serious off-roader are the grab handles. The grab handle there, another grab handle just there as well. So your passengers can have a little bit of security whilst they're being rattled around and in fear of being on their lid. And so seriously they take it, they even put one there for the driver so he can secure himself or she whilst they drive along one-handed. Or maybe it's for that inevitable moment when you are rolling down a hill that you can just grab hold of this and cling on to dear life for a while. The steering is what you kind of expect it would be, I suppose, really. It's not exactly rapid. Whatever they do with it, it's still going to be a big, cumbersome, lumbersome chunk of Japanese metal, and you don't really want to be flinging it around corners too quickly when you've got such a high ground clearance. I must say, actually, it goes surprisingly well for such a big old thing with an engine of which I am unsure of the power of and even the torque output. It goes a lot better than I was expecting. I was all ready for saying, gosh, it's a slow old beast, and then the only reason I could possibly give for that would be the size of it. And then I was about to say, well, you know, you can't really blame it for being slow when you consider the size of it. But I've not needed to do. No, I was going to just say I'm reasonably impressed by it, actually. Electric windows, electric mirrors, electric everything naturally, and all made of the same kind of switches that Toyota were using probably 20 or 30 years previous. They stuck with it because it worked, and if you can't make them any better, don't make them at all. On with the ignition, lots of lights everywhere, very bright dashboard with 155,000 miles. Automatic gearbox, of course, and a 172 brake horsepower engine underneath that bonnet there. Quite nice buttons, actually. Not sure the beep, the calendar. It's got a calendar on there, and screen setting, maintenance, there, display. There are all sorts of things you could do with this particular screen that would take you a while to figure out. It has satellite navigation as well. It has, oh right, okay, we have two-way climate control. We have a thing there that just says passenger on it. I'm not sure why. Maybe that is, yep, there we go. I can trigger it. There we go. If I put a bit of weight on there, it's telling the passenger that isn't actually there to put their seatbelt on. Another lot of buttons down here. Look, height control for the whole car. So that we can have it set to its maximum height, or we can have it set to its minimum height. And as it goes, I can't feel any difference. A whole lot more buttons here. We can switch on or off, like this here, which will lock the diff, I think. I'll switch that off before I set off. And heated seats. Heated seats are quite nice, aren't they? And then we have a diagram of the gears themselves. And I always find this rather curious, but when you've got these two gear sticks here, it might be just the way that my mind works, but it reminds me of something a bit of the kind of thing I wouldn't want to talk about on a video that I don't want to discourage younger people from watching. There's a button there that says second start, and then when you press it, it comes up on the dashboard just there, and in all honesty I don't know what it does. I don't know what that means. And that is the beauty of doing a car review without doing any real research beforehand. The surprise element of things is more exciting. It's brilliant. The gear change thing there is really, you've got to be really quite firm with it. It doesn't just slip into gear easily as you grab hold of it, yank it around, go into the various different positions and things. It wants you to be sure about what you're doing, which is fine with me. I've just put it into its high position where I'm told it'll be a bit boat-like, a bit floppily-doppily. I'll soon find that out, won't I? It is a bit, actually. Automatic box goes through the gears quite nicely. It has some of the characteristics of one of these big 4x4 thing where it feels like it's weaving around and going into every lump, and the whole body moves an awful lot considering the size of the bumps it's going over. I would have thought compared to something like a Land Rover this would be lacking in charm, lacking in character, but actually it's got something. It's got something about it. When you don't know why you like something, you just do. Launch it up the hill. That is not bad. I mean, I wouldn't really want to be going much faster than that because of the way that the car drives, which is the best way to describe it would be full of character. It has bags of that. So we're back on that thing again that's more interesting. Driving a car that doesn't feel like it's going to look after you too well. That to a degree you have to be careful of what you're doing because it could fling you off the road. Not because it's fast, no, but maybe because it's not really built specifically for the roads. It's built to go across continents. It's a car made durable enough to actually get yourself from one side of Africa to the other. Without stopping, I wouldn't like to say it, because you're going to need some diesel at some point. It drives remarkably well. The brakes are really rather sharp as well. In fact, maybe a bit sharper than I want them to be. And in one way, it does actually feel like it's taken up the whole road. But if you can drive a car quite comfortably and quite confidently, then that's what the road's for, isn't it? I wouldn't be that keen on taking this for any particularly spirited drive because of the way it dips and dives and follows the faults of the road that in any other car you wouldn't actually notice. But this car has spent nearly all of its life on a farm as well, so it's had a hard time going up bumpy roads. Apparently it's not even been that well looked after, yet it drives well. I mean, it drives as well as you would expect it to do. Normally when I take cars out on a little test drive, I stay a bit more local than this. I don't know how I've ended up just over the moors and then choosing the M62 as the easiest solution to get back. But I have done. So that means I get a chance to try it out as a motorway cruiser as well. It's great. It's a good car. I really like it. It's more me than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be just a bit soulless somehow, but it's not. It's just... it's pressing my buttons and going along at nearly 70, it really doesn't feel like it as well. So it's doing all of the things I would want it to do. Now, what about the things I don't like about the Toyota Land Cruiser? Well, although mechanically it's never ever likely to go wrong, it is likely just to rust away underneath. I like to think it's made for crossing the deserts of Japan. They don't really have any, do they? Deserts, yeah. Crossing deserts, not deserts. Deserts are wet, and although a trifle isn't very salty, it really wouldn't do the chassis that much good. For a car of this kind of mileage, you wouldn't really figure it. It could have 100,000 miles knocked off that, and I wouldn't expect it to drive any worse. it just does the job really rather well. It, being as that it's spent all that time on farm tracks, it's done exceptionally well. But then again, had this have been owned by someone who just used it for the school run, it would have been bounced up curbs every single day anyway, wouldn't it? Bounced up curbs, bounced over pedestrians, all of the kind of things you would expect for a car of this height to be driven in such a way by somebody who isn't really looking where they're going. And the final unexpected test is to see how the car handles in a motorway traffic jam. Obviously I wouldn't have come down this way had I have known this was going to happen. So we have a slightly longer than expected test drive. Whilst we're at it, might as well say the steering wheel's nice. It's got buttons on it. It's got the Toyota badge. It's leather and plastic. The really hard, shiny plastic. It actually, you'd think, if I was to tell you that the steering wheel's got this really hard, shiny black plastic on it, you would think, oh gosh, that doesn't sound very good at all. But it actually suits it. It works. It feels nice. Yeah. The word nice is one I'm using quite a lot today, and it is a word I generally try and avoid using because it's just so non-committal, isn't it? It's just no. Back to the usual question, which I like to end my videos with: would I own one? Would I buy one? Yeah, I would actually. The only thing is, the prices of the Toyota Land Cruisers are very, very high. Probably much higher than you'd expect if you was just looking out for something big and reasonably off-roady and capable. You may say, well, you'll pay many, many thousands of pounds for a Land Rover Discovery 3, which would be this car's relevant rival, I suppose. But the difference is, although the Land Rover looks to have a lot more character, I don't really think it actually has when it comes to driving it, and this is going to be a more reliable car. Let's not pretend that it isn't. If you want to go a very, very long way and you don't know about fixing cars, you shouldn't buy a Land Rover. You should buy one of these. If your daily commute is from one end of the continent to another, then you would be better off in one of these than the Land Rover, because in the you're going to miss work quite a few times. And that leaves me with one final question. I wonder how far the furthest somebody has to go to work actually is.